Hey there! Alright, this isn't going to be as long as the last one, I promise. It's going to be more succinct because now I'm in the zone and I got a flow going. I'm going to make some good videos, hopefully. At least that's the theory, okay? So, in the last video, I talked about my life and the kind of emotions I've been through and the things that I've dealt with and sickness and how I motivate myself and that kind of thing, right? This, I'm going to talk about dropshipping and how I got into dropshipping. It started, honestly, about 4 years ago. I found that I was pretty lost. For various reasons, I didn't know what I wanted out of life, but I knew I wanted to. I'd always had kind of business interests and interest in software and apps and games because I wanted to make games that taught people things. Like, my dream was always about like people talk about going to their holy book, like Christians will talk about going to the Bible to find advice on current things that they're going through. The idea is that you learn how to use this device to teach you something, right? Well, I always thought it would be really cool to have like a video game, but it's not like a traditional video game. Like, the whole purpose of this video game is for you to kind of give it some kind of input on what you're currently going in your life and the things that you're having problems with, so then it can give you a scenario that you can replay and make different choices and learn about how different things may play out, right? I always thought that would be so cool, but to do a game like that would take so much work and so much psychology, and it would really have to be a project that I poured myself into over a period of years. That's not the way games are made at the moment. if like if I want to make that game, I have to become successful financially some other way without losing all of my free time. So that is my motivation, is because I want to make video games. That's ultimately what my ambition is. And I can tell that the place that the video game industry is right now, most video game developers are limited by their deadlines and the fact that they need to make certain dates, right? If you, as a video game developer, do not have to face those deadlines because your financial things are already taken care of and you are well budgeted, you have a huge edge over the competition because you can take the time to finally polish something. And obviously, like, things change and that kind of thing, but there's other things behind that. But my point is, that's all I knew about myself at the time. I knew I had interest in video game development, but I'm not a programmer. And I tried to learn how to program, and I have in the past, but I was never really able to get myself to a point where I can now practice every day, right? I can try dropshipping stuff. I know how to expose myself to new dropshipping things and start aggregating experience. I was never able to get to that point as a programmer. I just wasn't able to, like, I couldn't figure out how to start generating experience. I could get little snippets of it, but ultimately that's what stopped me, is because I realized that that was an interest that would come out later on in my life, right? But for now, I needed to figure out how to work from home. And this was because of the things that were going on in my personal life, to be honest. Like, I love the idea of working from home as a person, that suits me. But at the time, I was so sick, I had to face the fact that I might never get better, and I would have to figure out how to work from home because there was no way I could work a regular job. So that was quite a motivator for me because I didn't have a choice. And whether I really didn't have a choice or I just perceived that I didn't have a choice, ultimately, it doesn't matter because it lit a fire under my ass. And I started selling stuff on eBay. I was like, you know what? Okay, I like Nintendo products, and well, the way it worked actually is, again, I was lost. I didn't know what to do, but I did know that I'd had a death when I was 12. Right, my father, a figure in my life, had died. That caused a disconnect. So I kind of went on this mission to kind of remember all of the things I did and enjoyed as a child and re-expose myself to them, to try and kind of connect the separate parts of my head, the part after my dad died and the part before my dad died, like, back together, if that makes sense. And one of the ways I was doing that is I remembered a Nintendo 64. And I remember playing games like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark and with my friends and that kind of thing. And so I looked on Craigslist and I saw an N64 for sale, and it had Perfect Dark, and it had like 8 other games, and it was only $40, which is a really good deal. I don't know if you know any about the prices, but it should have been like, if it was a semi-good deal, like $80, but regularly like 100, and it was 40, but it was in Arlington. So I was like, all right, that's childhood experiences right there. I'm going to go find that. And so I went out to Arlington with my friend, because I didn't have a car at the time, I don't think. So I would find ways to get my friends would drive me, basically, and I'd either pay them money or just they'd go to pick up a bunch of cool retro video games, right? So it was a kind of cool process. But I got that, and then I brought it home, and not a single one of the games worked. I was so devastated. I was just, because I was so excited, and then I was just like, God damn it. Oh, it's not that simple, is it? Then I looked online, and then there were a couple things about, games just die over time. Cartridge-based games last longer than discs, but, sometimes they just die. They're flash-based. Things can happen. They get stuff spilled on them, and then one's like, hey, just grab some isopropyl, and then just dab it in there with a Q-tip, and then dab that on the game. And so I did that, and then every single game worked. I was like, wait. A Q-tip and some isopropyl alcohol took 11 of these N64 games from a not working state to a work every time state. That is cool. Like, really cool, right? I was so blown. The solution was so simple when the first things I'd come across had said that I was screwed. And that became a recurring theme in my life, where you look for something, a solution to something, and the first couple things you find are just people saying it's impossible, or people saying it just doesn't work, right? And like, once I learned that, dude, that concept exists for every single problem in life. There's going to be more people telling you that you can't do it. But that has almost nothing to do with whether you can or not. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I was looking back into my childhood, and I got that N64 stuff, right? And then I got really interested in it at that point, and I started just buying stuff off Craigslist with the intention of like polishing it up and selling it on eBay. And then I got into this kind of process of buying stuff off Craigslist, selling it on eBay, learning about the price differences, packaging everything, and selling account limits. I remember the first time I started, because I'd aggregated multiple things at this point, because I was like, hey, I can sell them on eBay for more than it cost me to buy them sometimes. I can make some money doing this. Maybe that's money from home, kind of, right? Huh? It was the thing I was interested in at the time. And ultimately, I did that for like a year, and me doing that, just buying Nintendo products off Craigslist and then reselling them. The reason I like Nintendo products is because they sold super, super quick. There was a price for almost every Nintendo thing that was only $1 or $2 below average that would make it sell within like 24 or 48 hours, which was really cool. I liked that kind of engaging nature of it, right? So when I had like 20 N64 games, right? And I was like, oh, I could sell all these really quick. They're all high demand. And then so I make eBay listings, and then I get to the 5th one, and eBay's like, hey, you can't post anymore. There's a category-specific restriction on this. I was just like, wait, I can only sell 5 units a month? What? That was when I first had to deal with that concept. So I did. I just sold my 5 N64 games. And then I think they upped it to like 20 or something. But my point is, that's how I started on eBay. I didn't know anything about dropshipping at the time. I really didn't. And the Nintendo stuff, I eventually kind of stopped doing because I met this guy. His name was Tom, right? And he was doing a Storage Wars kind of thing. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Storage Wars, but it's about... Storage Wars is a show where... so a lot of people in the U.S. have this thing called a storage lot or a storage locker, right? Where you pay a certain monthly fee, and it's just a garage that you put stuff in, right? When you rent that, if you fail to pay it, they'll auction the items that were in the storage lot. So, you can think of a lot of scenarios that this might happen, like if somebody dies or somebody gets sick, or a lot of them are grim, and like we could tell from the contents of the lots, but... the way it would work is that you have this convoy of people, and people will do like auctions, right? So you bid on the entire contents of the storage lot. So what Tom would do is he would do this, and then he would give me items to sell on eBay, and then I'd give him half the money, which is really awesome considering he was giving me items to sell, and I didn't have to give him any money. Like, that was huge. I could literally just sell it. It was so easy, and it got me so much experience so quickly, because suddenly I had access to a bunch of, half the time shit, but sometimes really cool stuff. Other times, like, it would be like, oh, here's this, like, 45-year-old yellowed piece of dental oscillation equipment. Yeah, somebody might want that. It was, like, worth $1,000 at some point in history, right? But that's where I started on eBay, and that's when my account really got big. It wasn't just that. It was also selling Magic the Gathering cards for people. And the main reason this happened is because of of my friend Nick. He knew somebody who had like a huge Magic the Gathering card collection that they were trying to get rid of, or they were trying to sell. So I ended up selling them for him, and it was that same kind of format I worked with Tom, except with this guy I gave him 70% of the profit, and I kept 30, whereas Tom gave me 50-50. So, better deal with Tom. But the Magic cards, the reason I like them so much is because they're all very lightweight and really easy to ship, and they're really quick to work with because they have so much value in such a small amount of space, right? And this guy had dumped thousands and thousands of dollars into his Magic card collection. So he gave me all of the rare cards he already knew were worth selling. And I ended up selling those for a total of like $4,000 something dollars. So of that, he got like $2,000, and I earned like $800-900, something like that. So that was the most profitable physical selling thing I ever did on eBay. But it also got me about 300 reviews from Magic cards alone, because I would be able to ship them really quickly, and it was just one tiny package. So like something like half of the items I'd sold were individual Magic cards, because it was just like one card at a time, right? I didn't sell them in big lots. Sometimes I would sell like 4 at a time, but still, we're talking about less than an ounce, even if you have a stack of like 10 cards in a slip, right? So it was really cheap to ship. And then eventually I started getting into Udemy. And Udemy is a place online that you can pay for courses. And I was like, all right, let's learn some more about eBay stuff, right? Because at this point I'd sold the Magic cards. I was trying to think of like, how else can I start bringing some money in, right? Because as great as it was, the work as I was doing, it was fun and I was earning a decent amount of money. It wasn't really that much money, and it was a lot of time spent, It wasn't a life-changing amount of money, and it didn't really, I couldn't see it becoming that way. What it was a lot of experience developing and selling an eBay account, right? So I found this course by David Dang Vu about dropshipping on eBay. I had never heard about dropshipping before, but I was like, hey, I already got an eBay account. I've got experience selling. And so earlier I had to deal with finding the item and testing the item and cleaning the item and doing research on the item and making the listing and then dealing with questions and then doing the shipping and dealing with returns and dealing with bids and auctions, all of these time-consuming things. And then I learn about drop shipping, where everybody else just does that work, and you deal with like kind of customer messages and returns. It's a fraction of the time. And then that bulk part of me was like, if I could scale that, I could. It's feasible. Whereas nothing in my life at the time was feasible to scale, right? But I know that if I can get involved in e-commerce, it's just a matter of time, right? So that's when things kind of changed. And I think in a sense it was easier for me because I started off dropshipping already being an existing eBay seller. And I remember because I was a top rated seller, and I only sold back then I was huge into customer service. I was very I would always respond to people. I was very responsive. I gave away a ton of partial refunds and that kind of thing. That was just how I operated because I was in control of the whole business. It was so easy for me to make sure things were shipped out quickly and that customers were communicated with and all that kind of stuff. But when I first learned about dropshipping, I didn't know about Hydra Lister or about bulk theory or any of that. I was learning about optimization. And the way the optimization works is that you take time identifying listings that you think are going to sell well, and then you put time into making sure that all the features of that listing make it most likely to be picked up by eBay's search algorithms and shown to buyers. And that's what optimizing is. It's taking the time to fine-tune the specifics of each listing to make it more likely to sell. Ultimately, optimization comes to spending time investing in individual listings to increase their chance of selling. Optimization in a nutshell, right? So I was manually posting items, right? Just like David Vu taught. And it was taking me like about 10 minutes per item. And I realized pretty quickly that most people were also wasting a lot of time because they would spend ages just thinking about items to post. And I learned really quick that for me, what was fastest was to separate the tasks so that I only... When I sat down to look for items, I was actually just making a list of the next like 10 items I'm going to post. And I would just try and be as quick as possible because it's about getting experience posting items. It's not about producing a sale, although the sale will give you valuable experience. Ultimately, what it's about is you getting as much experience as possible. That is what will lead you to success in dropshipping, okay? So how do you do that is the thing. Really, you just got to stick with it. You got to think about how you're spending your time. Because when I start this transition between when I started to make lists of things to post, now all I had to do is I just spent like 30 minutes making a list of like 20, 30 items, and then I would just leave all the tabs open, and every time I got a chance, I would try and hammer like 2 or 3 out. I think the most I ever did was like 20 in one day, right? Because this is before Hydra Lister. This is before lists of items, like 10,000 list long links. This is before I could post an item to eBay just with a URL. Back then, I had to like scrape everything myself, grab the photo, do the title, do the optimization, do everything, right? So I was manually posting items. And I did that for the first like 7 or 8 months. And to this day, I've actually earned more money doing that than this bulk stuff. Even though my bulk sales are huge. And, well, okay, if you don't count cash back, then that's true. If you count cash back, I've made more money on bulk by, like, double. But I haven't gotten most of my cash yet. You know, I've only gotten half of what I accrued up until, like, a month or 2 ago. And I just started selling a bunch more and using more efficient cash back, so now I'm eligible for way more. But, anyway, tangent again. All right, so how I got into dropshipping. At this point, we're at the end of the optimization. So I was really adamant that manually posting items was the way to go. I didn't like that there was so little that you could do with Hydra Lister. At least I perceived there was so little. Because I remember feeling like SkuGrid and Hydra Lister were the next step to move this forward, but not taking that action. I was aware of the software for like a couple months. And what happened is ultimately I just got bored of manually posting items, and I wanted something that was more interesting and more thrilling. And so I just accepted that I wouldn't be able to control everything, and I was going to try and make some money by using this kind of, like, because when I first looked at Hydra Lister, I didn't really think a whole lot of it. I was like, oh, you know, it's a tool, that kind of thing. But then I looked at the batch page. And the batch page, that's where you can post lists of URLs into this tool, and then it just makes eBay listings out of them. This is me seeing this is coming from, I've done so much time making eBay listings. And then in my head, there's this thing that's like, wait, so its potential is that the amount of time it takes me to post an item is the amount of time it takes me to create a list of URLs? That's seconds a listing. Like, whoa. And that was a turning point for me. I actually, like, okay, keep in mind, I had 800 optimized listings at this point that I'd spent, like, that's like 10 minutes per listing. You know what I'm saying? So that's like 8,000 minutes. You know, it's a decent amount of time. I probably didn't math well there. But anyway, my point was I had invested months of my life into this current store with this manual method. And I just decided, you know, I'm just going to wipe everything. I'm just going to reiterate and start over. Even though I was at 15,000 in sales back then. I was earning money that was more regular back then. Bulk doesn't give you regular money until you really figure it out, which I have yet to really do. Although I am as long as cashback works out, I'm going to be pretty set now coming up in the next couple months. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So, dropshipping, how I started it, David Dengvu's course, the months of optimization, and then introduce Hydra. And that was when I remember I was like, do I get an Anchor store? And I was like, I kind of have to. Because there's no way, like, an Anchor store makes it 5 cents, whereas it's like 20 otherwise. So that's when it started getting interesting, because prior to that, I was just using other people's methods. And I was just, like, there's a lot of information about optimization and then scaling an optimized dropshipping business through the use of virtual assistants. So it became kind of more appealing to me once I was in an environment that I could try new things and learn things and develop things. And I kind of liked that everyone's like, oh, your sell-through rate's so bad, it's not going to work. And then people are like, no, it'll take so long. Like the thing, like I'm able to operate 60,000 items. Yeah, my sell-through rate sucks, but I work on it an hour to an hour and a half a day. That's it. Like, that's not much time at all. And optimization takes so much time. And ultimately, that's why if you want to be successful in optimization, you pay virtual assistants to do the optimizing part so you can keep growing your store without going insane. Okay? It's a tedious process. But virtual assistants will allow you to get there, really. Anyway, at this point, I think I've kind of illustrated, where it came from, because that's the point that I started doing the bulk stuff, and I started this series, like, after I'd been doing bulk for, like, 6 or 7 months, I guess. I don't even know anymore, to be honest. It's been a while. Oh, man, that was a 20-minute video. Ah! All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.